here. And I do think, unfortunately, this kind of is the end of, and I say unfortunately, not because I care, truly, but I say unfortunately because it seems to not be doing anything good for anyone. This is the end of the Trump administration. This is the beginning of the lame duck presidency. It's obvious to everyone, even his most ardent supporters show up to the White House, like Laura Ingraham, and she's kind of shocked on what the hell's going on. Now we'll start, 3 years of talking about the ballroom.
I think a lot of people can see the writing on the walls. We've talked about how Candace Owens has been more vocally critical of Donald Trump. We've talked about how Nick Fuentes has declared MAGA over like a half a dozen times, and that's only further propelled his popularity. Another person that I'm really excited to get your reaction to their analysis is because that person is Tim Dillon, recently interviewed not just Marjorie Taylor Greene, but Bernie Sanders. And I was listening to this because I always like to keep my keep my thumb on the pulse of what's happening on the Tim Dillon show. What are all of these Rogan comics up to these days? How are they coping? How are they analyzing things? And Tim Dillon's a really unique figure because I totally believe he himself is a right-winger. He likes people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But in the opening of this show, sorry, my mic stand keeps falling the fuck apart. But in the opening of this show, he does a brilliant breakdown of why real estate in New York City is so expensive. And he says a lot of the things that we've said on this show over and over, that it's a store of wealth for rich people, that it's not actually about owning a home there. For so many people, they'll buy a fucking apartment building and let it sit entirely empty because they don't want any tenants because nobody can afford to live there. And it becomes a real problem because these private equity groups, these international conglomerates, they buy up all of the fucking housing in Manhattan. And then once they've gobbled up all of Manhattan, then they have to gobble up Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, etc. So that's how he sets up this entire argument, right? And it really does have this populist appeal. And then he's going to go on to criticize anybody who actually wants to do anything about it. Let's take a look.
Actually live there. But this, again, is the promise of globalization. This is the great promise of globalization, that money can cross borders, people can cross borders. You have an endless supply of labor if you want. You have an endless supply of capital. It can go all over the world. It's a free market. Everything's free. There's no tariffs. Goods are moving, services, people. Why shouldn't people be able to come into a city, buy all the real estate, make all the buildings empty, and then drive the cost up so that no one can afford to live there?
And this is a really good critique to offer. It's just very strange that this is coming from a man that supported Donald Trump 3 times, a real estate tycoon and billionaire who wanted to deregulate all of New York City condo purchases. Like, that's the thing. That's the head fake about Tim Dillon, is the fact that he will say a bunch of things that are true and then go ahead and recommend that you go and get behind the politician who will only make it worse. He's already said in this episode, and we didn't clip it because it was just too long of a segment he was doing about New York City real estate, but he says, oh, Mamdani's not going to do anything about this, right? I don't believe Mamdani's going to do anything about this, right? And then he goes and he talks about how these problems were caused by people like Mike Bloomberg, who was the mayor of New York City. So he wants to pin the blame on one mayor of New York City and then say it's impossible for it to be fixed by the new socialist mayor of New York City. All the while, this man supported a New York real estate tycoon for president 3 times. So what he is responsible for as a propagandist, how Tim Dillon works as a MAGA propagandist or a right-wing propagandist, is he is going to identify correctly a really serious problem, and then he's going to give you a totally fake solution to it.
It's a great idea. This was the idea that we all grew up with. The magical idea of globalization. The magical idea that the entire world was going to be flat, like Thomas Friedman said at the New York Times, everybody was going to be happy. And there's not going to be any more wars. There won't be wars anymore because we're going to live in a globalized, interconnected world where, because of the internet, everybody's going to be able to fight it out online. So there'll be no more wars. Well, how'd that work out? How'd that work out for everybody in Gaza? Do they feel like there's no more wars? But this was the promise of the global system. The idea that we had to take in people, and Trump's even saying now we have to do, from China, the H-1B visas, They got to come in. We got to have people come in from India because we don't have those skills in America. Well, whose idea was it to not?
That's also another thing that I really feel like has caused a lot of MAGA to turn on Trump. Maybe that's just what you were saying while I was gone, but I've seen a bunch of people complaining about the H-1B thing, making fun of Donald Trump for his justification for it, and also Ben Shapiro for defending it.
Yep. No, I did not touch on that. That's a great point, and Tim Dillon is going to throw up and pitch a fit about that even more so.
Build those skills in America. Whose idea was it to bring people in from China and India that can do the tech jobs that we're not training Americans to do? I had an argument with my aunt this summer about immigration. And I said, well, legal immigration also is something that should be regulated and maybe curtailed. And she goes, well, who's going to be your doctor? She goes, my doctor's from Pakistan. Are we importing all of our doctors from Pakistan? Does that make any sense to anyone that in the United States of America, we somehow are not creating doctors? We're not training people that grew up here to be doctors, and we're bringing people in from Pakistan to be.
So his entire political analysis is now resting on an argument he had with his aunt, who has a doctor from Pakistan, and she's worried that if there's all of these immigration crackdowns, she's not going to be able to see her doctor. And instead, he turns this into like a weird issue where it's actually bad if people from Pakistan come to our country and practice medicine. Now, I agree we should be making it more affordable for Americans to become doctors. But Gavin, Bernie Sanders was the guy running on free college for everyone and Medicare for all. I don't remember Tim Dillon getting in the tank for that guy.
Yeah, I don't think he was a Bernie bro either. But yeah, it's a weird, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, obviously, I agree that we should be training more people to go into highly skilled professions like that. But that just seems like a bizarre issue to have. And it's like, what was the Pakistani doctor? Like, was he Pakistani American? Like, was he born in America or Pakistan? Not that it matters, but I mean, there's a lot of people here that are like first generation immigrants or second generation immigrants. Maybe their parents were from another country, but they were born here. Like, they're still fucking American. Who can, like, was the doctor only speaking Pakistani or like whatever? Could he not speak English? Like, what's the problem? I just don't really get it.
Yeah.
Pakistan a dysfunctional society, to be quite honest.
That's why.
Is the idea that the United States of America, that every one of our children wants to flick their bean on OnlyFans and instead of becoming a doctor, and that we have to bring in doctors from Pakistan, a country that we suspected that was harboring the fugitives from 9/11? Does that make any sense to anybody? It does to Jennifer Welch. It does to a lot of these wine mom drunk white liberals that think it's so great. They love
just clout chasing, glomming off of Jennifer Welch, trying to take a pot shot at her because she's gotten on the radar of a bunch of divorced dads on Twitter recently. They love to get cringed out by her. But yeah, his abstract argument is that because people like Jennifer Welch support immigration into this country, she's also the reason why no young Americans are becoming doctors.
Yeah. Is there a quote from Jennifer Welch that he's going to react to or something? Like, what does Jennifer Welch even have to do with this?
She's just the stand-in for being a white liberal to him now, because he knows that she's going to do well in the SEO, and that if he calls her out, it'll be like, oh my God, like, oh shit, he just threw Jennifer Welch's name out there.
These wine mom drunk white liberals that think it's so great. They love, as brilliant Rachel Feinstein, the comedian, says, like, her mother likes pronouncing the names in the back of a taxi. But does this make any sense to anybody? And my aunt says this sitting on my couch. She has children. Some of them are doing great. Others are getting by. They're doing fine. They're not bad people. But they're not killing it. They're not crushing it. And she's excited about bringing in doctors from Pakistan. That's what boomers would rather do. Boomers would rather bring in doctors from Pakistan.
It's also weird. It's also weird because I feel like most boomers are like, I don't know. I feel like it's weird to suggest this. I feel like if anything, a lot of people are like worried about that. I don't see a lot of people that are like, we need to bring in more Pakistanis so that we have enough doctors. I see more people that are like, we need to not let as many people immigrate. There's more anti-immigrant sentiment. Like, what is this sentiment that he's referring to? That's like, we need to import a bunch of more Pakistani doctors. Like, I just don't hear any liberals saying that. I hear people defending the concept of immigration, which I think most people would agree has enriched this country, whether it's the, like no one complains about like the Italian influence that's, some of the most iconic aspects of this country, like in New York City. Why do you think you can get fucking so much pizza in New York City? It's because of the rich history of Italian immigration to that area. Like no one's concerned about it. But why is it different now? I just don't understand this argument from him when it seems like his mom or whatever has a pretty reasonable take. She's like, yeah, my doctor's Pakistani. Why do you care if we bring Pakistanis? They're enriching society. They're becoming doctors. They're helping their community. Like, what is the issue?
Yeah, this is like Tim Dillon's war on Christmas, right? Because he's inventing like some sort of a hysterical reaction to the wrong thing, right? Like when people get all upset about the war on Christmas, it's because they saw like a Muslim dude while they were doing their Christmas shopping. It's like, oh, I was at the Aeropostale and I saw a woman in a hijab. You can't say Merry Christmas anymore. Oh my God, Starbucks took down the Christmas tree and now, it's World War III now. It's all over. Like he sees one Pakistani doctor, learns that his relative has a Pakistani doctor, and now we're boomers now. They no longer are afraid of people who are brown and black. They actually want to import every single job and give it to a Pakistani person. It's completely made up. It's for the birds. Boomers overwhelmingly supported the guy that Tim Dillon did in the next election, who said that immigrants were poisoning the blood of our nation. And I'm so glad you brought up the Italian shit, right? Because Tim Dillon's from Long fucking Island. Okay, Long Island is a hodgepodge of all kinds of different cultural masses of people who came in through Ellis Island, whether you were Irish, whether you were English, whether you were Italian, whether you were from anywhere all over the globe. New York City is a global hodgepodge of all these things. And yeah, nobody ever had a problem with it then. We built up all of our country with people from China, with people from Mexico, with people from different parts of Europe, right? Korean folks built all kinds of parts of this country. Arabic folks built all parts of this country, right? That's how the American fabric, the melting pot story has always been. But yeah, it's just weird to try and give this like woke analogy where it's like, oh, I actually care about the workers in this country, but just to have an excuse to fearmonger about anybody brown being successful in America.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And again, at least with the doctor thing, at least that's not an example of an immigrant just being like exploited. The real issue, if you're going to take issue with like immigrants in the workforce, it's kind of weird to be concerned about the doctor immigrants. Like, what about the ones that I'm concerned about are like when you're at a fucking hotel and all of the help, so to speak, is like that they don't speak English. They're all clearly undocumented. Like those people are probably being viciously fucking exploited. They're probably barely even not even being paid minimum wage, and the same thing with the construction side workers. Like to the extent to which immigration in the workforce is an issue, it's because a lot of immigrant people are being exploited because they will take just about any job that pays them just about anything. But again, at least in a doctor position, like at least that is a trained professional who's not being exploited, who probably like owns a practice or something. Literally nothing wrong with that. Not at all. No more so than an Italian American owning a fucking pizzeria. Like, is that an issue too? Why aren't we teaching more Americans to make pizza? Why do we have to keep importing Italians to do it for us? What about and again, what even is a real American? Someone that's ancestry is from England? Like, okay, now you're a real American. Now you can own a pizzeria and practice law and be a doctor. But, it's just a weird thing to worry about again. And also the other thing I was just thinking of, I've never even had a fucking pack. All the doctors I've ever had have been just fucking white people. So I don't even know what the issue is, if that is your issue. Like I have yet to encounter a Pakistani doctor in my personal experience.
Oh yeah, and we actually live nearby one of the largest medical school campuses in all of America. KU Medical Campus is freaking enormous. It's right down in Kansas City, and there are all kinds of students all the time. I actually used to get medical school students when I was bartending at After Work. People that would have those big biology books and be set out, and it was a diverse group of people, just like any downtown group. I'm sure I may have served a Pakistani guy that was going to become a fucking doctor, but who cares? It's so crazy.
To be honest, when I was at UMKC, it did seem like a lot of the medical students were like Indian or Pakistani or whatever. But again, who fucking cares? Like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm
like, what? I'm gonna just be honest. Okay, no, that's interesting.
Well, at least they would all, like, you would see them kind of traveling as a group throughout campus together. I'm not sure. Either way. But again, I don't think they were all just fucking immigrants. Like those people were born here. They're part of the Indian American community. They have just as much right to fucking practice medicine. And it kind of reminds me of the whole, like, the Jews control the media thing. Like, yeah, it is true that historically, Jewish immigrants were very successful in like Hollywood, for example. If you study the history of Hollywood, a lot of the OG like studio heads and movie moguls were Jewish. That's because a lot of the Jewish immigrants had a lot of success in that industry when they came here, and you still see the traces of that today. I'm guessing, yeah, there is a similar phenomenon when it comes to like Indian Americans or Pakistani Americans and their involvement in the medical industry. It doesn't mean they fucking control the medical industry. It's not an issue. It's just that, yeah, this one, immigrant group did really well in this one job. That's why you see more of them, I guess. But again, I just can't imagine caring or thinking that like, oh, white people aren't becoming doctors anymore. I'm pretty sure they fucking are. In fact, I feel like going to school for nursing or becoming a nurse or someone in the medical industry is actually one of the more common jobs. I know a ton of people that became a nurse or a doctor.
My cousin
went into that industry.
Yeah, my cousin's about to, I think like fucking, I don't know, maybe I think at the end of December they're finally ready to be a nurse. They're basically a nurse. They do all the stuff, but you have a bunch of more certificates and stuff that you have to get after you're done. I mean, yeah, American as apple pie, everyone. If you're curious, there are still, American. I think she's part indigenous though, so I guess not technically up to Sam or to.
No, that's the only real American.
Yeah.
We're the invaders.
Yeah, and if we play a little bit more of this, it gets to the point. I wanted to have the little juicy line about Jennifer Welch, but this is the real reveal, I think, and it shows that the podcast bro sphere, they're going to be Team Marjorie. They're not going to be Team Donnie much longer.
Let's look at Trump here. And I do think, unfortunately, this kind of is the end of, and I say unfortunately, not because I care, truly, but I say unfortunately because it seems to not be doing anything good for anyone. This is the end of the Trump administration. This is the beginning of the lame duck presidency. It's obvious to everyone, even his most ardent supporters show up to the White House, like Laura Ingraham, and she's kind of shocked, going, what the hell's going on? Now we'll start, 3 years of talking about the ballroom. He will trail off. He will get older. He's he's adorned the White House in gold. Epstein's going to suck the oxygen.
Yeah. Even when he was asked about Charlie Kirk's death, all he could, ramble on about with his dumbass fucking ballroom. We're literally already there. And I do think that the fucking destruction of the East Wing, as I've said before, was an important piece for a lot of people as far as realizing the true nature of Donald Trump, just to see in a visual fashion, him ripping up the traditions and the history and the, the norms of this country, just destroying it out in the fucking open air. I do think that was a powerful visual. And then to hear him, talk about that instead of Charlie Kirk's death, to talk about a stupid fucking ballroom. Yeah, it was insult to injury for a lot of people. They could forgive a lot, but that was just too dramatic.
Yeah, and I think that Charlie Kirk assassination period, it really anchored a lot of people, and it was a wake-up call for people on the right in a way that I didn't really expect it to be, right? It didn't personally impact me very much, right? When I was like, oh shit, that happened to Charlie. But I think conservative people who did listen to Charlie Kirk over and over and over again, they were like, oh man, what kind of society are we creating with all of this stuff, right? And then to see how Charlie Kirk had dedicated a good bulk of his adult life to advancing the political career of Donald Trump.
Literally his entire adult life, arguably.
Yeah, the last 10 years, right? At least being dedicated solely to Donald Trump and helping him rise and helping him be the president and to be just completely like, hand waved away. It just showed, I think, again, the visual example you're referencing of how Donald Trump would treat any of these millions of Americans who had sacrificed for him or had shown up for him, etc. And then you have him destroying the country. He doesn't even care about you. He's destroying the White House. He doesn't care about that. Yeah, people were starting to, I think it helped people like wake up from the spell, from the trance that he'd put on all of them for a decade or so. But that was the good bulk of what I had from the Tim Dillon clip over here. He basically just goes on to bitch and moan about how, the world is ending, kind of like how he does. I just think it's interesting to examine because he sets up a lot of problems with our society that could be met with a progressive solution. And instead, he doesn't have any interest in that. He just wants to be angry about like racist things like, oh, there's too many Pakistani doctors, not enough American doctors. It was just, it was like the most boomer shit I'd ever heard from a guy who normally is a little less boomery than that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the H-1B thing is a bizarre hill to die on. I think it's kind of weird because again, it's like, does it really impact you that much? Oh, your fucking mom's doctor is Pakistani. couldn't even clarify if he was a legal immigrant or if he was a Pakistani American and had been here since he was born. Like, you didn't even fucking clarify. Oh, my mom's doctor is brown. That's the issue I have with the, like, what? Okay. And again, that actually is not very in line necessarily with the same critique that Marjorie was making, because she was talking about how she was pissed off that, you know, in the construction industry, which she knows and is a part of, they were losing workers, right? So it is kind of the opposite critique of Marjorie, but they both end up on the same page, which is that MAGA is basically dead or dying, and the rest of Trump's presidency will be increasingly embarrassing. Which I totally agree. Specifically, if there's a blue wave in the midterms, if the Democrats retake the House, holy shit.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there.